Hey guys, Logan here, and welcome back to my MCU series of reviews. I'm going to be covering every MCU installment in Phase 1 and 2 leading up to Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, and Ant-Man and the Wasp. And for this one, I'm going to be reviewing Captain America the First Avenger, one of the last installments in Phase 1 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And this is the Captain America origin story about Steve Rogers, Captain America, played by Chris Evans, who wants to join the military and then wanting to go into a war against the Nazi Germany, which also is associated with HYDRA. And Steve Rogers' only problem to join the military is that he's very small and very tiny and very thin, and he has to become the first ever super soldier. It was all buff, big, and tough and stronger and faster. And then moving on in the film, we get to see him become what we known him to be as Captain America. Now, a lot of you, I would assume, saw this movie when it came out back in 2011, myself included. And I remember watching this film about more than a dozen times or more. That's how much I really enjoyed this movie. I think, for me personally, this is the most underrated MCU film I've ever seen. It's the most underrated film in Phase 1 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, specifically. Now, I am not saying that it's one of the best MCU films that I've ever seen. I'm just saying that in terms of which MCU film that I feel like is underrated and was not appreciated enough by a lot of people, critics and audiences alike, Captain America the First Avenger is the first one that I could come up with. So let's get started by talking about Chris Evans as Captain America. This might not be one of the best performances of Chris Evans playing Captain America in the MCU, but it's certainly a more serviceable performance from Chris Evans to play Captain America. And he did a good job as Steve Rogers, aka Captain America. He is the right choice to play Steve Rogers, who wants to join the military and fight against HYDRA, led by the Red Skull, played by Hugo Weaving, I believe is his name. I might have messed up his last name, but whatever. Who, by the way, did an okay job. He was okay as the main villain of the film. It wasn't like he was remarkably awesome as the main villain or that Marvel has to offer. He's the masterpiece of a villain in the MCU. No, I'm not going to go that route. The rest of the cast for this movie, besides Chris Evans, was really incredible. Tommy Lee Jones as an army general, really good. Stanley Tucci as the doctor for Steve Rogers. He was pretty good. And the woman, I can't remember her name, but she plays Peggy Carter in this movie. And she was pretty good. She almost reminded me of a Natasha Romanoff in some sense. Almost I guess you could say a love interest for Steve Rogers. More like a companion than a love interest for Steve Rogers. She did her performance very well. Another positive that I will give this movie for is that each act of this film consistently improved. The first act is pretty heavy with exposition, flashbacks, and character development, and not very much action. Probably almost no action scenes in the first act, and sometimes it got boring, sometimes it works, but for the most part, it kind of didn't work. Especially because, it depends on the pacing for the first act. The pacing was going on a little bit too much and too long. Basically got draggy at certain points. But the second act and the third act got even better, especially the third act. Each act got consistently better from the first act. And the action in this movie, I thought, was exhilarating in a good way. There's not a single action scene that I could find, maybe one or a couple, but for most of the action, I would say, was not very bad at all. I find myself to be very thoroughly entertained by the action scenes in this movie. particularly Captain America against Hydra's soldiers, or the forces of Hydra led by the Red Skull. There were a few certain story plots that kind of stopped the movie for me, particularly in one very minute scene that involves Steve Rogers being with another woman besides Peggy Carter. It was very minute. It was very short, very quick, probably about a minute or two, but it just stood out to me very often, and that is not really saying much. I mean, even though it's just a small scene, it really stood out too much for me. Just making it like as a hint that there's going to be a love triangle, even though there actually wasn't later on, but it was kind of used as a hint that there was going to be. And I feel like that shouldn't be in the movie at all. Another positive that I will say for this movie, Captain America the First Avenger, is that it's pretty funny, or a little bit funny. The humor for this film actually worked. Most of them involving Tommy Lee Jones. I thought he was the most funniest character in this entire film, even though he plays an army general. There were some jokes that he brought out in this film that did make me laugh. He's still skinny. So yeah, guys, I would say that this film overall was more watchable than people giving it credit for. This is a very underrated MCU film. It's not one of the best MCU films for sure, but it's a fairly underrated film that I feel like people are not giving credit to just based on how good it actually was. I feel like people should watch this movie more often just to appreciate how fantastic Chris Evans is as Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, more. I am going to give Captain America the First Avenger a gold medal of honor. Anyway guys, that is my review for Captain America the First Avenger. My next review in my MCU series of reviews is going to be for Marvel's The Avengers, my favorite film in the MCU right until Captain America Civil War came out. And my review for The Avengers will be up on April 3rd, so mark your calendar on that date for my review for The Avengers. So anyway guys, that is about it for now for my review for Captain America the First Avenger. If you guys enjoyed my review for Captain America the First Avenger, please click the like button and comment down below to let me know what you think of this movie. If you enjoyed what you've seen here and you want to see future videos from me, please press up there to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great week, Battle Squad, and as always, fight the good fight.